ladies and gentlemen, we're back, and just before the third bout gets underway, we have a very special guest. You might have recognized him from the very first chess boxing match this evening. He was in the white corner. He won by checkmate after 2 brilliant boxing rounds. It is Martin Kamerling, and I'm really excited to dig in with you, Martin. So let's start with, how did you find out about chess boxing?
Well, you know very well how I found out about chess boxing, my man. Actually, a guy named Kevin from Eastbound Gym, he wanted to throw a chess boxing fight on one of his club championships, and I was excited by it, but the match couldn't go through. And then I started emailing everybody from, hey, I want to fight somewhere in chess boxing. London couldn't came through, and then I emailed Ipe, the founder, and something went wrong in our communication. Then I saw you in the park on a beautiful afternoon teaching boxing to one of my friends, and here he was, and you hooked me up, so I'm here.
So I'll pick up the story there. So I had a one-day layover in Amsterdam, your home city, and was walking around the park with a friend, saw 2 people boxing in the park. I love boxing, so I went up and just started watching. We picked up conversation, and you told me that you were thinking about training for a crazy sport called chess boxing, and I played dumb. I said, what is that? You explained the rules. I was like, he knows what's up. And so I told you my background and going to the World Championship in 2018, preparing for 2019, and we got you in touch with Jeppe, and our first. Here we go. We're coming back. We'll wrap up the story. So, in your first chess boxing matches in 2019, how did that go? How much time did you have to prepare? And what was your experience like?
I only had 2 weeks of preparation, so I just cut 2 kilos of weight to be in a lower weight class to make sure I could use my height a little bit, so don't get too messed up in boxing. Not a lot of chess, to be honest. I did my best, but I did not like this time. Now I really trained for it. I train every week with my chess coach, and I know what I'm doing now. Last time I was just trying to hold on and survive, and it's different now, and it feels good. You can actually learn how the sport really works. You have to push yourself mentally and physically, and that's beautiful. Amen.
I couldn't agree more. And Martin, I gotta say, like, incredibly impressed with your transformation from last year to the World Championships to tonight. Tons of improvements, both in chess and in boxing. And how does it feel to come back a year later, winning by checkmate, having the type of performance that you did in the boxing ring? Like, what was your experience like tonight?
Yeah, it feels amazing because, like I said, I was really getting my ass beat the first 2 fights I did on this World Championship, and now I'm checkmated even for one match against Daniil, a guy I fought last, the Russian, the last match. And just the improvement. I didn't really find out how I improved as much as I did, so that feels good.
Yeah, and it looked good too. So we're about to get underway with the next match. Any final words for family at home, friends, coaches, anything like that?
Iedereen in Café Spijt, je weet het. Dank jullie wel en geniet van jullie avond nog. Ik vond het geweldig om jullie allemaal te zien daar feesten. Dank je wel.
It's supposed to be an English stream, Martin. I'm just kidding. I hope everyone back home enjoyed the match and has a few beers waiting for you when you get home. And thanks for being here. We'll definitely have fun at the after party tonight.
You know it.
All right, so we just had the walkouts for in the white corner, the Finn Lars, and in the black corner, the Russian Dimitry. Now these 2 have faced off before, and Dimitry was the victor in those. But Lars is on in his home turf. He's been training hard. I've been talking to some of his coaches and to him specifically, and he is extremely confident coming into this match. So we are about to see the clash of the literal titans of this matchup, both over 105 kilos, both really strong in chess and in boxing. Only about a 200-point ELO difference between the 2, and both definitely in that securely in that heavyweight category. And I actually have a very special guest joining me as a co-commentator for this match. So we're subbing out the prolific Matt Reed, the most decorated chess boxer with over 30 fights, for the man that puts on the chess boxing matches in London. So Gavin, would you mind introducing yourself to the stream?
Thanks very much, Matt, for those kind words. me and Matt and a few other people put on chessboxing events in London. We've got one in December. We put on about 2 a year. Obviously with COVID that's not been possible, but we've had Lars fight for us actually 3 times. So he's a fighter that is well known to us, and he's a fighter well known to his opponent. I believe they've fought twice before as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Lars can bring to his game, to see if he can make a difference and perhaps beat Dimitry. I think he's lost to him twice on the chessboard.
Thanks, Gavin, and we are already well into the opening. Both players moving very quickly, only about 15 seconds off of the black pieces timer and 30 seconds off of the white pieces. So it looks like we're playing a little bit of catch up here. We had an e4 opening, a very kind of mirrored matchup here, but black did get that dark square bishop outside of his pawn chain. A little bit more control over the center as a result, having both of his knights and his bishops developed, and white being a little bit more defensive, also has his dark square bishop out on that flank there, but being pushed back by that H pawn, giving the king a little bit more space. So really calm development. All the pieces are getting developed. There aren't any major pieces at stake yet. And really just trying to vie for control of the center here. We have our first trade, knights going off the board and bishop taking one of those center squares, d4. Gavin, what do you see?
I'm really pleased to see both combatants taking their time, playing to the 9 minutes. The first bout we saw, there's some rapid play. It was the kind of pace you expect to see in a 5-minute game, perhaps. So these guys are taking their time. I think they're going to develop a much more interesting narrative. They obviously know what they're doing. They're feeling each other out, and I think we're building into something that could be quite interesting once we see a break in the center of the board at some point.
Thanks, Gavin. Agreed. And it looks like we are in a position where black may go up a pawn here. So that there has been a trade of pieces, and the retake here from the e4 pawn to the light square bishop leaves that pawn exposed, but he opts not to go for that and instead challenge the other bishop, who escapes back to that b6 square. And white still has the opportunity to retake that bishop. Let's see if he vies for it, and he doesn't. He leaves the bishop. The bishop now has an opportunity to retreat back, and leaving the bishop again. The bell rings. Very interesting position. Do you think he's missing the opportunity to take the bishop, or do you think he's leaving it there as a point of strategy?
I would say they missed it, to be honest with you. I'd like to think that there's some strategy behind that I've missed. It's quite possible, but I think he missed it. I think also it's interesting. The black queen is being pinned as well. Rather, the knight is pinned in front of the black queen as well. So it'll be interesting to see if white can bring a rook onto that file and perhaps try and put pressure on that knight. But we're into the boxing now, so let's see what they've got.
Thanks, Gavin. Yeah, and black's really supposed to have an advantage on the chessboard, and it didn't look that way in the first round. So here we are about to start the boxing round. Black, the Russian, has youth, and white, the Finn, has experience, and we're about to see them clash in the center of the ring. Lars in the white and Dimitry in the black. The action about to get underway. Here we go. The opening bell rings. Both men meet in the center, trading jabs. A nice feint up top and landing a jab to the body. 3-point combination, all hits the guard. Lars keeping his left hand up and throwing an overhand right, followed by another overhand right, both landing on the guard. Dimitry definitely the more active fighter so far. Seems like that slow overhand right keeps coming out from Lars. Dimitry fighting with his hands down. So both bringing his right hand down when he throws the jab, which Lars may be able to capitalize on, and fighting with his hands down to bait a shot from Lars so that he can counter. Already looking like a little bit of a mismatch in the ring. Maybe Lars is starting slow as a point of strategy, or maybe Dimitry is just that confident. A nice check hook, pivoting out, circling. Back to the center of the ring is Dimitry. And a nice jab right up the middle, splitting the guard of Lars. Gavin, based off of the last matches that you've seen with Lars and seeing what you see now with Dimitry, what are your thoughts about halfway through this first round?
So the last time Lars was out fighting in London, he was fighting Cameron Little. Again, he was giving away reach to Cameron Little, as he is in this fight. And again, I think he's struggling to get inside, get close enough to his opponent to land punches. So he's taking a few on the way in, and then Dimitry is just backing off and then resetting. So I think Lars needs to try and stay inside, and he's doing that now. That's great. You can hear the crowd here. The Finns love this guy.
Crowd going wild as Lars makes it inside the guard of Dimitry, landing an overhand right on the chin, pushing him up against the ropes, and the roar of the crowd seeming like it invigorated Lars a bit. A little bit more action here. Nice quick jab. Pushes Dimitry back and circling. The combo from Dimitry only lands on Lars's guard. So some signs of life from White. And Dimitri's just leaving himself so exposed when he throws shots and in between. And Lars is so disciplined, keeping his guard up, even when he's out of range. It's staying up. He's being very hard to hit clean. And I've not seen many clean hits from Dimitry. He's throwing some combos. He's getting some grazing shots in. But Lars is doing a good job keeping that shell up. It's a low time bell. Before the end of this round, any final thoughts? And who do you think is winning this round?
To me, it's clear. I think Dimitri's won this round. Although it will be interesting to see how the chess develops, because Lars seems to be doing a pretty good job of keeping tucked up, keeping his guard high. So if he can gain an advantage in the chess, then there's a good chance that he might be able to see that through. But at the moment, Dimitri's been using his reach to good advantage. And it's really hard to see how Lars is going to come back into the boxing if he needs to. If he goes down on the chest, he's going to struggle, I think.
Well said, Gavin. And we heard another roar from the crowd at the end of that round as Lars landed another overhand right, pushing Dimitry up against the ropes, and seeing Dimitry shake his head just before the end of the round. That definitely felt some electricity from all the Finns here live in Helsinki. And as they bring the chessboard back into the ring, what advice would you give either Lars or Dimitry in this chess round?
Well, there's a very, very simple piece of advice I would give them, which is, for your first move, take your time. Anybody who's done chess boxing knows that first move is always your worst move. Take your breath, think about what you're going to do, think about it again, think about it a third time, and then make your move. That's my advice.
That's great advice. As you change from boxing to chess, your heart rate is high. You might have been knocked in the head. You have a lot to manage as you bring your heart rate down and start to refocus on pattern recognition and strategic thinking. And that can be a very difficult thing to do. And some techniques can help, some breath work, some mental priming for refocusing back on the board. But just from a purely scientific standpoint, oftentimes you'll end a boxing round around 130, 140 beats per minute. And ideally, you're getting down to 70, 75 beats per minute. But we are already underway, even with high heart rates, with White and Black both taking some action. It looks like Gavin saw the action, so I'll let him comment on it.
That's right, Matt. So that bishop that was on pre, the white bishop, Black's white squared bishop has now been devoured by Lars's pawn. So there's a clear advantage now there to White. So it'll be interesting to see how this affects the boxing, if Lars can keep this pressure on in the chess. Although he is a couple of minutes down, I think they've both got enough time on the clock not to be too worried about it just yet. But certainly Lars now coming out on top in the chess.
Another very solid move by Lars. I'm impressed with Lars's play so far, especially being a lower-rated chess player. He's playing a lot better. Both of his bishops are developed and controlling important diagonals on the board. He just had the black queen pin, to Gavin's point, last round, and Dimitry did move his queen out of that pin. If you're unfamiliar with what a pin is, it's when a very valuable piece is behind a less valuable piece, and both are being attacked on the same line. So that could be from a rook, from a queen, or from a bishop, like in this case. So we have some more exchange of pieces in the center of the board. Now black has a very strong center, both central pawns still there. And both players have one bishop left. So I think we've come back to about an equal position. We have just about equal pawns. I think a one pawn advantage for black, and then equal in power pieces. But I would say that black's position is a little bit more favorable with those doubled pawns and with a developed bishop pointing right down at that white king. What do you see?
Thanks, mate. I think it'll be interesting to see if he brings the black queen comes forward a square, lining up with the bishop. That's a very dangerous position, and also that white pawn is very fragile. It's going to be hard to defend that. So yeah, I think we might see black going a second pawn up quite soon.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see the same. That isolated pawn in the center is going to be very difficult to defend. But black makes an interesting move, challenging the rook, but blocking off his attacking line from his queen to that central pawn. So, white hopefully sees this with low time and is able to save the rook and maybe defend that central pawn, which would give white a little bit of momentum going into this next boxing round. So Lars had his hand hovering over that rook to make the move. Let's hope he survives this boxing round and remembers what move he was going to make. But the headphones come off, the gloves are coming on as the chessboard makes its way out of the ring, and the fighters get their mouthpieces back in and prepare for battle yet again. Going into this next boxing round, Gavin, what advice would you give, especially Lars, in this round?
So I think Lars, if I remember correctly, he may need to conserve a bit of energy, which he did well in the first round. He wasn't throwing too many punches. He was waiting until he got close enough, and then he was unloading. And he's got a very powerful punch if he can land it, but he's got to get past that jab. So I think much the same. He needs to keep tucked up, try and walk forward, walk down his taller opponent. He'll have to take a few jabs on the way in, but if he's got his guard up, he should be fine. And then unload a few bombs and see if he can get the crowd going.
And here we go, round 4. The second boxing round is underway. And a jab comes out early from Lars. Dimitry landing 2 jabs after that first. So Dimitry back into his rhythm, his style, hands down, dancing around. And Lars catches him in transition with a nice left to the chin. Dimitry keeps circling, taking back the center of the ring. 3-point combination, all lands on Lars's guard. A jab lands on Dimitry. Again, a reminder for the audience, Lars is in the white gloves, wielding the white pieces. Dimitry, the Russian, is in the black gloves, wielding the black pieces. Jab both into the guard of Lars. One sneaks through, a 1-2, almost looking like he pulled that second punch, knowing it wasn't going to land. Lars has him back up against the ropes, leaning on him. All 105 kilos of him, or more, right? 105, 106. That is not a light man, and when that weight is on top of you, it saps your energy. It makes you really feel like the weight of the world is coming down on you. Dimitry getting a little showmanship here, making faces to the crowd, moving his head, walking with some gusto, some intrigue. A right hand, it goes just a millimeter off of Dimitri's chin. And what do you make of this showmanship, the hands down? Is this something that you think Dimitry is maybe a little bit too cavalier and cocky about?
Well, I think Lars just answered that question for you. Dimitry perhaps leaving himself open, and Lars landed big. Lars, known in Finland as 106 kilos of beauty, and he really delivered all 106 kilos through his cross there. And it's interesting, Lars is dominating the centre of the ring. It's important really because you're able to conserve energy. Dimitry is really moving a lot more than Lars. So perhaps Lars is trying to make sure that Dimitry moves more, gets more tired. And that will affect his concentration on the chess, of course.
So again, the rules of this chess boxing match, when penalties are awarded, they actually take their toll on the chess timer. An interesting addition to the Finnish rule set for this event. And we have the low time notification just now. Lars, the aggressor the entire round, slowly trudging forward, landing shots, and again wins the end of the round with a big overhand, pushing Dimitry up into the ropes. Overall, I would give the round to Dimitry, landing more shots, being more active, but I'm really impressed with Lars's composure, his slow momentum, constantly pursuing Dimitry, and then taking advantage of the times that Dimitry gets a little bit too confident, leaving his guard down and getting caught in transition. So what did you think of that round? Do you think, who do you think won?
I think in terms of points, I think probably Dimitry. I mean, he's much more active. He's every round he's been throwing more punches, and obviously with that reach, he's able to land the jab much more easily. But in terms of the chess boxing, I think Lars is playing a great game here because he's starting to grind him down in the chess, and you can see Dimitry is clearly quite tired. And a lot of that is because he's been more active, and because Lars has been able to cover up, dominate the centre of the ring, and walk Dimitry down. So if this goes another round of boxing, I can see Dimitri's chess dropping off, and it's really balanced very finely on the chess at the moment. And I think Lars has been showing his experience.
Well said, Gavin. And we are back to the chessboard. The headphones are going on again. That German death metal playing in their ears. I can't believe that is part of this this competition. Maybe classical music or something. I would have understood if there was music playing, but. That's just a whole other challenge that these chess boxers have to deal with. Not only is their heart rate high, adrenaline spiking, and fatigue setting in, but they're dealing with clashes of drums and guitars as we get back underway here on the board. It looks like Lars remembered his move, moving that rook, and kind of to an unfavorable position. So the reason why it's unfavorable is he is trapping his other rook with no ability to move anywhere. And maybe a better square for that rook would have been either E1 or C1, either controlling an open file or defending that undefended pawn. But he is moving it so his other rook can move. Maybe he's going for double rooks here. Wow, it looks like Black did the same thing, trapping his own rook too. But rook's getting more active here. Pawns starting to push their way up the board, which are all signs of moving out of the mid-game into the late game. Gavin, what do you see in this position?
Well, I think Lars has got to watch out. He could potentially get his bishop trapped, could he? If he moves his queen back, there's a potential for the king, the pawn in front of the king, to move forward 2 spaces. So he's got to keep an eye on that. But really, he should be moving his rooks into the open file. You want to dominate those open files with the rooks. That allows you to get them down the board and onto the back rank or in line with your opponent's pawns. So I'm not sure how the rook play is going to pan out here. But we'll see. We'll see if they can develop them, or perhaps develop the pawns in front of the king and break up the centre there. Oh, he's sacrificed his bishop, I assume, to try and open up the king, but that's not worked, unfortunately. So Lars now, he's gone a piece down. It's not looking too good for him.
Yeah, I think Lars mistakenly thought the only defender for that pawn was the pawn in front of the king, and that pin to the king would have made it a free pawn. But I think he overlooked the 2 rooks also pointing at that square. It's either that or potentially the time pressure. He is down about 5 minutes, about 4.5 minutes from his opponent, and maybe some frustration or some urgency set in to make him make that sacrificial mistake. All right, so now we have a rook moving into position, lining up the king with the queen and challenging the queen to have to move out of the way. So now he's looking really good as an attacker if the rook on e4 moves out of the way. Both the queen and the rook will be pointing right at the king. Another offensive rook comes into play. What chances do you think White has of defending this?
It's not looking good for White now, to be honest. Although, I do feel there's potentially a blunder from either boxer, so they've got to keep going. The black rooks are now in front of the white king, which is a very dangerous position. If he can start moving his queen over there, and then bring his pawns down the board, really black should be in an exceptionally strong position, especially as I believe he's got the bishop there pinning the pawn against the king. So let's see what happens. I'm sure that another round of boxing will mean that it's definitely possible we could get another blunder. So I wouldn't write Lars off just yet.
You can never count anyone out in chess boxing, even if the position looks lost, even if the boxing is one-sided, there's always a puncher's chance and there's always the chance of a blunder, which is what makes this sport so exciting. With that bell, we are underway with the third boxing round. Nice quick jab comes just shy of Dimitry's chin as they trade jabs following up. Another great jab over the top. Lands right on the nose of Dimitry. Dimitry still fighting with his hands down. And an overhand right. Lands on the chin, then back up to the ear. Crowd going wild for their hometown hero, Lars, as he lands a couple of shots with Dimitry up on the ropes. And Dimitri's style is really countered by Lars's slow, just constant trudging towards Dimitry and pushing him up against the ropes. I'd say about 80% of Lars's punches are landed when Dimitry has his back up against the ropes. So Dimitry at all costs needs to keep backing up, circling, using that jab, and not letting his back touch those ropes, because the chances of Lars landing increases so much. Just like right there, it wasn't a hard punch, but it was a punch both to the head and then two to the body, which it looks like Dimitry felt as he readjusted his shorts and reset. Dimitry also shaking out his wrist, may have hurt it. Doesn't look like he's hitting quite as hard. Still fighting with his hands down, throwing the same combination again, is a left hook followed by a right cross. Lars relentless in his pursuit. He just keeps coming forward no matter what Dimitry throws at him. Got to appreciate the persistence, the dedication to his strategy. Woo! We're about halfway through the round. Gavin, what do you see in this round?
I can see Dimitri's tiring. I think Lars' slow pace has allowed him to conserve energy. And now it looks like Dimitry is the tired boxer. Lars is just moving him around the ring, dominating the center. Even when Dimitri's not punching, he's having to walk twice as many paces as Lars, because Lars is in the center of the ring. And you can see Dimitry is visibly tiring, and that will affect his chess. When he sits down, makes that first move, it'll be really interesting to see what he does. There's a high chance that we'll get another blunder in the chest, because Dimitri's looking exceptionally tired now.
Agreed, and even though Dimitry still is the busier boxer, I would give the advantage in this round to Lars. I think this is the first round where an argument could be made that Lars is winning. He's landed cleaner shots. He's been the aggressor, like Kevin said, for most of the round. He's controlling the center, and it has earned him the claps and the chants of the Finnish crowd here in Helsinki. As we approach the end of the round, they're cheering his name, and there's the bell. High five, good sportsmanship from both fighters, Lars in the white, Dimitry in the black. We have a minute in between rounds. Let's see if Dimitry can get his wind under control as he comes back to the chessboard. And at Gavin's point, let's see if any mistakes are made as a result of these really taxing boxing rounds that we've just seen.
I think, Matt, the body language here is quite telling. We've got Lars in his corner, chatting quite casually, whereas Dimitri's been leaning up against the ropes. He looks visibly tired. It'll be really interesting to see if he can pull himself together and focus on that first move. If he can, I think we could have a very quick ending to the chess. But I think with his exploits in the boxing, it's going to be very, very difficult to focus.
I agree with that analysis, and here we go. Transition music playing as the fighters put back on the headphones, sit back down to the board, and start to study the position. Just a moment, that position will become available to us. Now, a big time advantage is on Dimitry, the black pieces. So, if I was Dimitry, especially after that fatigue from the last round, I would take a lot of time thinking, considering, making sure I'm not making any stupid mistakes, because Dimitry does have an advantage. He has a piece advantage here. He's up about 2 points, or a full power piece. He's up a bishop. So 3 points in total. And now tripling up the 2 rooks and the queen all in the same file, but running into a pawn chain and not much room for an attack here. Unfortunately, very, very savvy move by Dimitry. Taking that, and here we go. That could be game over. Wow. So missed checkmate by black. If black moves, no way. Oh my gosh, a great counterattack by white with checkmate just looming. I mean, like black can checkmate if he moves to G7 or G2. Let's see if white sees it and can defend it. He does have the king in a tight little corner, but for now the king is safe, and the white king is not safe. So with less than a minute to go for white, let's see what he does. So a queen sacrifice just to relieve the pressure. I think he's going for another boxing round. I think he's just trying to move quick, survive on the board, and see if he can knock out the younger fighter. What do you think, Gavin?
Yeah, I mean, Lars is such a great fighter. We really want to see him fight in the ring, and the crowd here, they're right behind him. And clearly his tactics have been paying off in the ring, because Dimitri's getting more and more tired. I certainly wouldn't say that it's beyond Lars to knock him out. He's got a really great right hand, Lars, especially when he's moving forward into it. So if he can catch Dimitry, especially if Dimitri's got his low guard, I think he's got a chance to knock him out. But the chess is over, unfortunately. He just needs to survive as long as he can.
Agreed, and let's see if Lars is able to manage both the position and the time to make it to another boxing round. Really, the only shot of him winning is making it, and checkmate is being threatened right now. Let's see if Lars, 1, sees it, and 2, can find a way to defend it. It is going to be tough to defend, though, and that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We have a checkmate for the black pieces. Dimitry and the black checkmates the Finn. And the white. Lars goes down, but not without a brilliant fight. The crowd still cheering their support for Lars. And a big congratulations to the Russian fighter with the black pieces for checkmating Lars. Dimitry with the victory, bringing another W home for Russia over the Finns. Gavin, how do you think that fight went?
Thanks, man. I thought it was fascinating. It's so good when you have boxers who use different tactics, different methods. And on the board as well, I thought they were very well matched. It was nip and tuck on the board, and yeah, we saw the tiredness come through on the board. So it was really a complete chess boxing bout, and that's why they're so well loved, these two, by the crowd here, because they really put on a great show.